Welcome back to the Morgan Streetman Show. And Morgan, we're talking about the service industry. And Pat, I know you did some fun stuff for Mother's Day. We went to, I'm not going to name the restaurant, but we went to a restaurant here in the Tampa Bay area, one of our favorites. Haven't been as often over the last year, but we went there. The food's always great. And the service really was not good yesterday at all.
Really?
And you know it's Mother's Day. You know you're going to have packed tables and larger parties, but it was not what we expected. And everyone at my table started getting restless. My family was like, well, this is terrible. And I said, guys, listen, don't get mad at the people who are here. The people who are here are working. They can't find people to fill the spots.
Yeah, happened to me, too. We had a limited menu at ours and they normally have 100 things on the menu. There were like 11.
Yeah.
It's just because they can't find the help to cook.
Well, that's part. Yeah, I mean, you can't. We talked about that last week. You know, we've got McDonald's
signs everywhere
offer to pay $50 just to come in for an interview. $50. I mean, you could almost make a living just serially going around to McDonald's. I'm sure they've got some clause you can only do it at one McDonald's or something like that. I mean, come on. Somebody's figured that out by now and started trying to go to all the different McDonald's here in the Tampa Bay area. But they're having trouble finding workers. And then, you know, the workers that they do find, you say don't get mad at the ones here, and I don't want to get mad at people, that's for sure. But I'm finding that customer service is on a downward trend. Now, maybe that's because folks are more stressed. But, you know, we were not in the Bay Area, but we were somewhere over the weekend. And, you know, to the point of having the servers, they're almost seem upset that you're there. They seem stressed out. I don't know if they've got too many tables. But I'll tell you, the restaurant we were in, there were only a couple of tables that were occupied. And there were big groups, including ours, you know, 8 or 10 people at the tables. But the servers were they seemed really just what I would say miffed at us. You know, when we asked for refills on water, they just kind of brought over a pitcher of water and just set it down on the table. You know, like, oh, you fill your own glass. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with filling my own glass. But I just see that the customer service aspect, which is something, you know, that America is well known for. You don't get those of you that have traveled, you know well that the customer service that you can get in America is unrivaled. You don't get this other places. Go ahead, Pat.
You know, what happened is that every time we went anywhere over the weekend, because of the way it is out with, you know, hiring, I made it a fact to just ask everybody, how long you been here?
Mm-hmm.
And the longest person of the 3 different places we went, 3 months.
Wow.
One was 1 week.
Well, so these are repopulated after the shutdowns, basically. And I don't mean that these weren't necessarily even mandated shutdowns. These were just restaurants couldn't operate. Of course, a lot of places they had capacity limits, which now in the state of Florida, Governor DeSantis has done away with all of those local mandates, the mask mandates, the capacity limits, although you still see them being enforced. I mean, I was at a place over the weekend where they were fully enforced, the mask mandates. Every time you walk into a place, the first thing that staff does is come over and hold out a box of masks towards you. Now, of course, you know, I'm not a mask wearer myself, and I don't like to wear masks. But, you know, they were very heavily requiring masks anytime you were inside, which I didn't personally see the point of. Of course, I've looked at the science, some of which we'll try to get to today if we need to pick it up and move along here. You know, another story I wanted to cover, and this goes right part and parcel of what we're talking about. I don't know if you saw, but the April payrolls data came out last week, and you talk about a miss. I mean, it was a huge miss, expected to add 1 million jobs. And remember, this is the fastest growing economy in the history of the first 100 days of any presidency. Remember, Joe Biden took credit for that? Remember, we kind of called that to account last week. But listen here. Well, let's see if we can get it.
More than 1,300,000 new jobs in 100 days. More jobs in the first 100 days than any president on record. The International Monetary Fund is now estimating our economy will grow at a rate of more than 6% this year. That will be the fastest pace of economic growth in this country in nearly 4 decades. America's moving forward, but we can't stop now.
Well, somebody forgot to inform the businesses of America and the workers of America because they had a little hiccup last week with the data that came out. And it looks like things have stopped now, or at least slowed down dramatically. They added just 266,000 jobs. The expectation, and this is not an expectation that one forecaster made. You're talking about dozens, scores of forecasters, put forward their expectations, and they were kind of averaged out. And the expectation was that they would add 1 million jobs to the payroll records in April, and instead they only added about 266,000. Only 2 out of 79 forecasters even forecasted a number below 800,000. So everybody got this wrong. Now, what's going on here? I mean, how does this square? Well, this certainly isn't the hottest and fastest growing economy in history, which is what Joe Biden wants you to believe, right? This is not the fastest growing economy. This is not what you would expect to see there. And I think we're running into real trouble here. I don't know exactly what this means. Now, an interesting take from a friend of mine, a friend of the show, who sends me a lot of his thoughts and information. And he's an economist and an accountant and finance guy, knows a lot about finance. And he actually said, these numbers are so far off the estimates that I almost believe this is not real. The numbers can't be real, and this is a story to give cover for the Fed to continue its quantitative easing and money printing, because it's got to say we've got to get this economy going, so we've got to keep printing money, because it's just almost impossible to believe. Now, I'm not saying I necessarily believe that, but it's interesting that he's thinking that way, and I guess we'll wait and see what happens, because, of course, the Fed has said it was not going to continue with quantitative easing. It hasn't announced a date when it would begin tapering that, which would mean raising the interest rates. It hasn't announced that date, but could it use this news story and this event as a basis to continue the free money all the time? Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.